Hi kids, it's time for the Bible and you. And today's episode is, today's topic is Aaronic priesthood. So if you remember in episode 9, I talked about two kinds of priesthood. So before that, I talked about two covenants, the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. And we're going to look at the priesthood of Aaron under the Old Covenant today. So in the Old Covenant was made between God and the Israelites at Mount Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, God tells the Israelites that He will be their God as long as they obey and follow the law. And anyone who does not follow the law wholeheartedly, or anyone who fails to follow the law, cannot come near God, or they will die if they do come near God with sins. So God knew the situation, and He knew that no one can be perfect, no one can follow the law all the time, and this means that no one can approach God. And so to overcome this problem, God creates a person or a position called a high priest. So in the Old Covenant that God made with the Israelites, God chooses Aaron, Moses' brother, to be the high priest. And so if we recap a little bit of what we looked at in episode 9, we talked about how a high priest is chosen, why he's chosen, and we did this from Hebrews chapter 5 verses 1 to 4. So a high priest is chosen from among men to do God's work. So he stands between God and the people, and he offers gifts and sacrifices to God on behalf of the people. So he's chosen from among men, he's chosen by God, and he offers gifts and sacrifices for the people. But because the high priest is also human, he is weak himself, and so he also makes mistakes. But because he makes mistakes and he's also weak, he can understand when other people make mistakes and when other people fall into sin. So he can understand their weakness. At the same time, because the high priest is weak and because he sins, he has to offer a sacrifice for his own sins first, and then he has to offer a sacrifice for the sins of the people. So this is what we looked at regarding priesthood in the last episode. So today what we're going to do is look at the priesthood that existed in the Old Covenant and see how seriously God took this idea of priesthood and how he reacted when people did not respect that authority that he had given to Aaron. So we read in the book of Exodus chapter 28 verse 1 that God chose Aaron and his sons to serve as high priests before him for the Israelites. And so Aaron was chosen as the high priest, and then his four sons, Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, were all chosen to serve as priests in God's presence and to stand between God and the Israelites. And another thing we see in the book of Leviticus is that only the high priest is allowed to enter the most holy place. So if you remember from episode 1, I mentioned the tabernacle of meeting, which is the equivalent of the temple of God. And there were three regions in the tabernacle of meeting: the outer court, the holy place, and the most holy place. And in the most holy place, the Ark of the Covenant was there, and that's where God used to come down to talk to the high priest or to Moses during the time of the Israelites. So God made this law that people cannot just walk into the most holy place and talk to God because of their sinful nature. And so he says that the high priest can enter the most holy place once a year. And when he does enter the most holy place, he has to bring two things. One is incense, and the other thing is blood. So first, on the Day of Atonement, which is when the high priest is allowed to enter the most holy place, he has to offer a sacrifice at the altar. Then he has to take the blood of that sacrifice in one hand, and then he has to take a censer in the other hand. And a censer is a sort of bowl where they put solid perfume, and they set a fire underneath it, so it brings up smoke, which smells good. So the priest takes blood in one hand, he takes the censer in the other hand, and when he walks into the most holy place, the smoke from the censer comes up from the censer and covers the Ark of the Covenant. So the high priest does not see God face to face, so the smoke covers God from the priest, so he doesn't look at him directly. And on the other hand, he has blood which he has to sprinkle before God as a way of getting forgiveness for himself and for the sins of the people. So we see in the Old Covenant under the priesthood of Aaron that not everyone among the people of Israel actually accepted Aaron as their high priest, and there were a few rebellions. So we see the first rebellion in the book of Numbers, chapter 16. We see that a group of people, so one person is called Korah, he's from the tribe of Levi, and then Dathan and Abiram, both from the tribe of Reuben. These three people come to Moses and to Aaron and they say, how do you make yourselves, you know, high priest and a prophet? You put yourselves above the rest of us, but God has chosen all of us. He has chosen all of the people of Israel as his own people. So you know, we are no different to you, and we're the same, at the same level as you, and so you're putting yourself above us, and we don't accept that authority. So they're not happy that Aaron has been chosen to be the high priest. So they come and argue with Moses and Aaron about this, and then Moses tells them that they should, so it's Korah with 250 elders from the people of Israel. All of them are, you know, people who are known by everybody, so they're quite famous. And then Dathan and Abiram, who come and create this issue. So then Moses tells them, okay, fine, you know, if you don't accept Aaron and his authority, who is Aaron? You should come and complain. It's not like Aaron chose himself. Remember, I said the high priest is chosen by God. And these people didn't accept that Aaron was chosen by God, which is why they came and rebelled against Moses and Aaron. So Moses tells them, okay, so tomorrow, Korah and the 250 elders who are Levites, bring your censer before the tabernacle of meeting, and Aaron will bring his censer, and we will see whose sacrifice or whose offering God accepts. And so the next day, everyone shows up to the tabernacle of meeting. So Korah and the 250 leaders with him show up to the tabernacle of meeting with their censers, and they're standing there. And what happens is that because God is not happy that they have rejected Aaron as the high priest, a fire comes out from heaven and burns and kills Korah and the 250 leaders who are with him. That's on one side. And then there were two other people, Dathan and Abiram, who also did not accept Aaron as the priest, and they did not come up to the tabernacle of meeting. They just stood by their tents, and Moses sends people to say, can both of you come to the tabernacle of meeting? And they say, no, we're not going to listen to you, because you brought us out from Egypt, which is the land of milk and honey, and you have brought us to this wilderness, and you haven't given us land like you promised, and you haven't given us food or water, or you haven't looked after us. And so they refuse to listen to Moses. So Moses goes up to the tents of Dathan and Abiram, and he tells the people, he makes an announcement first and says, anyone who is near the tents of Dathan and Abiram, move away, because something is about to happen. And then he tells them, if Dathan and Abiram die a normal death, then God has not chosen me as the prophet. But if they die an unusual death, that is, if the earth opens up and swallows them up alive, then that is proof that I am God's prophet. So obviously, the earth opening up and swallowing people is a bit impossible, which is why Moses says that as a challenge. And as soon as Moses says that, the earth opens up underneath Dathan and Abiram, and it pulls up Dathan, Abiram, their families, their animals, their tents, everything goes into the earth, and it closes back up again. And so this was the first sign. And then God tells Moses, get Aaron to pick up the censers of the 250 elders who were burnt by the fire. Because they brought their censer to the tabernacle of meeting, the censers are holy. So you can't just leave them on the ground. So they pick up the censers, and God tells Moses, make sure you make the censers into plates, into bronze plates, because the censers were made of bronze. So hammer them into plates, and then fit that plate on the altar as a reminder. So every time the people come to the tabernacle of meeting and they see the altar and they see the bronze plate on the altar, it's a reminder for them that only Aaron and his descendants are allowed to come and serve in the most holy place, and they're allowed to be God's high priest. So it is a reminder. So that bronze plate should remind the people of what happened that day to the people who rejected Aaron, and how God showed the people that it is Aaron who is chosen to be high priest. So that happened on that day. The next day, God gives another sign, so which we read in Numbers chapter 17. So God tells Moses, choose one person from every tribe. And there are 12 tribes in Israel. So God tells Moses to choose one person from every tribe. And he says, for the tribe of Levi, choose Aaron. And then tell each of those chosen people to bring a staff, which is like a stick. So he says, tell them to bring a staff, and then write their name on the side of the staff, bring it into the tabernacle of meeting, and leave it before the Ark of the Covenant overnight. So you have to remember, no one can just walk into the most holy place. Only Moses can do that, but no one else can just walk into the most holy place anytime they please. So Moses collects one staff from every tribe. He takes it into the most holy place, and he, they have names written on them about which tribe they're from, who it belongs to, and they lay out the 12 staffs in front of the Ark of the Covenant, and he leaves it overnight. The next morning, Moses comes back into the most holy place. So 11 staffs look exactly the same. They don't look any different from the day before, but one staff had budded. It had put forth, buds, blossoms, and it also had almonds. So when they checked whose staff that belonged to, who that staff belonged to, they found that it belonged to Aaron, so it was from the tribe of Levi. So if you think about it, the staff had buds, it had blossoms, which is flowers, it also had almonds. But actually, if you look at any tree, any fruit tree, or any tree at all, in every season, you can either see buds, that is, all of the flowers in the tree will be closed buds, or most of them will be open flowers, or there will be fruit on everything. But you won't see all of them at the same time on the same branch, right? Because it's a seasonal thing. In every season, the form of the fruit or the flower changes. But here we see Aaron's staff. It had buds, it had small buds, and it had big buds. It had blossoms, that is, the buds were opened up as flowers, and it also had almonds, which is what comes after the flower. So you have the buds that forms into a flower, and then it turns into almonds. So the fact that all of these different seasonal signs were on the same staff is a sign that it was God who made that happen, and Moses didn't just replace the staff with something overnight. So this was the second sign from God that Aaron and his descendants were chosen as high priests. So then God tells Moses, okay, take that staff of Aaron which has budded, put it into the Ark of the Covenant. So this is also a reminder that Aaron from the tribe of Levi is chosen to be God's high priest on behalf of the people of Israel. Okay, so in the Old Covenant, what I've described to you just now is that God took the role of a high priest very seriously, and he appointed the high priest. So he chose who will be high priest, and if the people rejected the high priest, they were indirectly rejecting God, which is why the people who rejected Aaron were punished so severely. But if you remember, in the Old Covenant, it only includes God and the Israelites. We are not included because we are Gentiles, we're not Israelites. And the rule in the Old Covenant was, if you obey the commandments, if you obey the law perfectly, then you can have a relationship with God. But clearly this was impossible. And because this is impossible, God makes a new way. So he created a new covenant through Jesus Christ. So in the new covenant, anyone who believes that Jesus died for them on the cross is included. That includes us. It doesn't matter if you're an Israelite or if you're a Gentile. It doesn't matter. Everyone is included as long as you believe in Jesus Christ. And anyone who believes that Jesus died on the cross for their sins gets free entry into heaven, gets free access to God. So we don't need to wait for a high priest to go into the most holy place for us. We can speak to God directly. There is no barrier anymore. And Jesus is the one who stands between us and God. Not another human being, but Jesus, who is perfect and holy, is the one who stands between us and God. And so, even though in the Old Covenant, God gave us an example of a priesthood and showed us the importance of the priesthood and the importance of a high priest, why he created a high priest, in the New Covenant, he made a new way for us to come near him, and that is through Jesus Christ in the New Covenant. Okay, so let's quickly look through what we looked at today. First of all, we looked at the Old and the New Covenant and the priesthood under the Old Covenant, which was given to Aaron and his descendants. So Aaron and his sons were chosen as high priests for the Israelites. When Korah, Dathan, and Abiram and 250 elders of the Israelites rejected Aaron, and they rejected Aaron as high priest, and they wanted to be priests themselves, God did not accept their census, and a fire from heaven burnt up Korah and the 250 elders. On the other hand, we saw that Dathan and Abiram were swallowed up by the earth alive with their families and all of their belongings because they rejected Aaron as the high priest. And this was the first sign. So the censers were hammered into bronze plates and fixed on the altar as a reminder to the people that only Aaron and his descendants are allowed to come before God on behalf of the Israelites. The second sign that God gives them is that he chooses one staff from every tribe, and he makes the staff of Aaron from the tribe of Levi to put forth buds, blossoms, and bring up almonds, all on the same staff, as a sign to show that he has chosen Aaron and his descendants to be the high priest. But this is a priesthood under the old covenant. We have a new covenant now, which is open to all of us. So the old covenant is only for the Israelites, but the new covenant has been open to everyone who believes in Jesus Christ. And everyone who believes in Jesus has free access to heaven, has free access to have a relationship with God, and Jesus is the mediator who stands between us and God, not another human being. So faith in Jesus can bring us near God, and that is the new covenant. இந்த எபிசோட் உங்களுக்கு பிரயோஜனமாக இருந்திருக்கும்னு நான் நம்புகிறேன். உங்களுக்கு ஏதாவது கேள்விகள் இருந்தால் கீழே இருக்கிற இந்த இமெயில் அட்ரஸ்க்கு எழுதுங்க, நான் உங்களுக்கு பதில் அனுப்புகிறேன். சர்ச் ஆஃப் தி லிவிங் காட் யூடியூப் சேனலுக்கு சப்ஸ்கிரைப் பண்ணுங்கள். அடுத்த எபிசோடில் உங்களை சந்திக்கும் வரை பாய்.